That's why I think that Satoshi or whoever created Bitcoin was actually a time traveler. Because if you think about it, this is kind of my argument for why I think Satoshi was a time traveler. Because as Joe said here, in 2009, that's when Bitcoin was released. It was discovered much earlier. It was a compilation of a bunch of different projects and things that happened for about 50 years leading up to January 3rd, 2009. But in 2009, Bitcoin couldn't have worked because the internet wasn't fast enough. It was also in 2009 where right after the great financial crisis of 2008, in October of 2008, that's when the white paper was released. So essentially right after the great financial collapse of 08, Bitcoin was introduced, the white paper was released, and then in 2009, that's when the first block was mined. And the first block actually gave a nod to the great financial crisis of 2008, and it had a newspaper article, Chancellor on the brink of second collapse, something like that. But why I think Satoshi was a time traveler is because how everything was so well thought out in terms of the psychology behind Bitcoin, the grassroots aspect of Bitcoin, the supply, the swings, the cycles, and getting people interested, and a small percentage of people actually sticking around for the next one. And of course, the encryption and the mathematical aspect of Bitcoin. But if you think about it, in my opinion, there's no living person who would ever release something into the world like Bitcoin that could have the impact that Bitcoin is having and not live to see it through if it was just a regular person. Because if you release this thing in 2009 and the last block or the last block subsidy wasn't until 2140, you know that you're going to release this thing and you're not going to see that project through for the whole time. So I don't think that any human would have that vision to create something that they wouldn't be able to see play out. That's my opinion on it. And so the reason I think Satoshi or the group, who knows who it was, what it was, but I think that they were time travelers because they don't have the same concept of time as the average person would. That's why I think that Satoshi was a time traveler. Thoughts? Questions? Concerned? Yeah, agree with this. Time to try some mushrooms and talk to aliens about the Bitcoin. Maybe it was a time traveler. Maybe it was an alien, but it wasn't a normal human being. That's kind of that's what I'm getting at. Because no normal human being would release something so big, so perfectly designed, and not be able to, and know that you're not going to live to see it through.